shoulder. Let me in. A pinch of worm fat. Urine of the horsefly. 3 coins from a dead man's pocket. 2 teaspoons of wishful thinking. That should do it. Blow. Feel better? Much, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nat, he's Matt, and we've got your geek news right here.
And this week it's a review of Tim Burton's latest visionary adventure, and this time he's teamed up with Disney and the imagination of Lewis Carroll to bring us a new adventure of Alice in Wonderland.
But make no mistake, this was not an adaptation of any of Carroll's stories. It's a lot more like Burton bought all the Wonderland action figures and decided to put on a completely different play.
And this time, Alice is old enough to look like a typical Tim Burton heroine. Blonde, sallow, and scary.
There is a place like no place on earth. Some say to survive it, you need to be as mad as a hatter. Which luckily, I am.
Finding as many excuses as possible to give Alice the same plot devices in this movie as she had in Lewis Carroll's original stories, Burton managed to drop Alice down the same rabbit hole, drink the same potions.
Although it looks like they didn't taste as good as they did the first time.
That's true. In the book, they taste good. In this one, she looked like she didn't really enjoy it. Now, right down to Alice's dialogue of curiouser and curiouser, she basically does and says as much that can be sort of familiar in this without quite being perfect. It's still somehow twisted and off.
But gone are the logic puzzles and entertaining riddles that made the adventures of Alice so compelling for an adult audience.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, Carroll, or Charles Lutwidge Dodgson,
what a name,
as he was better known before his pen name became famous, he was a mathematician and a logician, so he loved playing with logic and nonsense to teach and entertain.
And Burton did manage to deliver on the nonsense with characters like the Mad Hatter and the March Hare, and bringing in the Bandersnatch and the Jabberwock. But the only way this film manages to capture the mature audience that Carroll so effectively snagged was with the dark and sinister Burton flavor that permeates all of his work.
Now, when it comes to sticking to source material, Burton did do an incredible job on the characters and the production design.
Yeah, from the dodo to the Red Queen's fish and frog servants to the Jabberwock itself, everything had a very Lewis Carroll aesthetic to it, but with a sinister touch of decay and disuse that made it feel like a sequel to the books.
Yeah, a lot of it really fit with the artwork in the original publishing, and that is what's pretty cool. Now, without spoiling the ending, it was nice to have Alice actually in Wonderland and not having a dream that just happens to wake up from, and that's what it was really cool. And that's kind of a shame. And it made for a viewing experience that doesn't feel quite as much like a waste of time.
Since you've been gone, the Red Queen has taken over all of Wonderland.
Find her!
Help us make the world right again.
Over their heads! Now, I really enjoyed the film. You know, it was a great Burton-esque fantasy world to be brought into, and it fully stimulated the senses. Was it anything extraordinary? Not really.
You know, it was an amazing world for Tim Burton to get his hands on, but I feel like it would have been just as cool if he was reimagining Oz or Narnia. And you know, come to think of it, I would probably watch it if Burton reimagined Star Trek.
Oh my God, good one. Now, I loved Burton's vision on characters we love, like Johnny Depp's Mad Hatter, but there were times he just, you know, kind of sounded like Captain Jack Sparrow. But, you know, he's so creative and twisted.
Yeah, I mean, Scottish? That was kind of out of the blue. I mean,
loved
it was a good excuse to have Depp in a kilt, but
yeah,
otherwise...
exactly, and that red hair.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know, but really, we just kind of love anything Johnny Depp does, so he is excused of anything and everything.
Yeah. Now, the Cheshire Cat. Creepy, conniving, cowardly, perfect. I just loved him.
Yeah.
The Red Queen and the White Queen, they were both absolutely perfect. One thing you can always rely on with Tim Burton is that they're going to just have fantastic costumes, and they certainly did.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that. Anyway, I always love Anne Hathaway. She's brilliant. I think she's fantastic. But Helena Bonham Carter was terrifying and pitiful all at once. You know, the lines that just came out of her mouth constantly cracking me up, like, "Clothe this enormous girl," and her Elmer Fudd speech impediment just added to the absurdity. I don't even know where that comes from. And of course, you know, her ginormous head just took the cake.
Now, I loved Alan Rickman's Caterpillar.
Yes.
His delivery was so Professor Snape.
Oh my
gosh. It was
gosh.
kind of weird. Now, he didn't get too much screen time, but then neither did Christopher Lee.
Yeah, which is crazy because they are huge names.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's all cool. It was all really, really well done. Now, both queens had the most hilarious quirks. You know, Red Queen having animals as part of her furniture. Like, there's a point where you see birds holding up the chandeliers. I know. And the monkeys holding candelabras and piggies being used as ottomans. I mean, twisted. But speaking of which, I think the weirdest animal servants were the slithering fishmen.
Okay, for me, the strangest thing was that the White Queen, she wouldn't harm a single living thing, but did you notice how she drooled over the buttered fingers? That chick was bent. I loved that. It was so weird.
Oh my gosh. You know, all in all, it was definitely a coming-of-age story wrapped in a fantastical exterior. Mia was perfect as Burton's Alice, and I love the way the flashbacks just kind of played into the story. Very cool.
Absolutely. Now, we watched it in 3D. Honestly, I can't see how you would do it any other way, but it's kind of just a gimmick at this point. Everyone's doing it because Avatar made such a killing, charging an extra $3 per ticket.
Yeah.
Now, Burton's 3D feels very different than Cameron's, and it's because Burton did his in the editing room. It wasn't filmed in 3D, on sets, in the way that Cameron's was. It was really CG stuff tossed in afterwards in post-production, and it felt more like a Disney multiplane camera.
Yeah, you could definitely tell.
Because you could see what was the foreground, background, midground, whereas Cameron's was subtle depth, and it didn't really feel like it was just, this is the actor, this is the stuff in the foreground, this is the stuff in the background. It was a lot more basic, I think, than Cameron's 3D. So if we had to critique the 3D, it's not quite up to snuff.
No, not really. But you know what? Overall, this was definitely a wild ride through Wonderland, made even wilder by Burton's twisted imagination.
Yeah, the brass tacks here is, this is some great Tim Burton, but it is not very good Lewis Carroll.
No.
So you're going to like this movie more or less based on who you're a bigger fan of.
Now make sure you catch a review of Woody Harrelson's Defender. It's definitely a gem that you don't want to miss while it's in theaters.
And the next movie we'll be taking you behind the scenes on is going to be Louis Leterrier's Greek epic, Clash of the Titans.
Cannot wait.
Crazy looking forward to that.
Oh my gosh. So keep your eye on yourgeeknews.com.
Someone has stolen 3 of my tarts! Did you steal them?
No, Your Majesty.
Did you?
No, Your Majesty.
Did you steal them?
No, Your Majesty.
Did you steal my tarts?
No, Your Majesty.
Squimberry juice.
I was so hungry! I didn't mean
Open
to.
his head!